Welcome to an all-new episode of the Work Shoot Wrestling podcast with Corey Richmond and Jason Brooks on Christmas Eve. Jason, how you doing on the second week on the Wrestling Life Facebook page? Uh, Once again, would like to thank Henry Maldonado and all the wonderful members of the group for welcoming us in opening arms. We had a great response on week one. Jay, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and yours. Another interesting week in wrestling. And this week, we talk a little bit about the ladies and see how they've been doing over the last year and what might be going on in the future.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about it. I'm pouring a delicious beer right now, Phase 3 triple cream. If anybody's interested, anyone in Illinois. Excited to talk about it, talk about the ladies a little bit this week. We have some rating stuff. So there's still, although it's kind of definitely a slower period of wrestling this week, there's definitely still a lot of news, a lot of stuff going on still.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those weeks where we're coming off a pay-per-view, an ROH pay-per-view, a WWE pay-per-view. End of the year, you've got another pay-per-view quality show coming up for both AEW and NXT respectively before their big first of the year show, and MLW has a big show. So, and we still got Wrestle Kingdom coming up. So, I mean, the first week of January is going to be huge. But I thought this week we'd talk a little bit about the ladies. And last year, we had the huge year of Becky Lynch. But, her year was kind of cut short with the great news of finding out that she was pregnant. We had the bad booking of Shayna Baszler, so her year wasn't as good as the year before. Asuka had another great year. Io had another great year. We had
NXT had a great year overall. If we're doing, promotions, women, promotions that did best by the women, other than the women's only promotions, NXT by far in a way did the best stuff.
Absolutely. Dina Purrazzo got released, and she basically had a resurgence career where we thought her career was just going to never happen. Chelsea Green, unfortunately, continually got hurt, so her career just is still in a standstill. But I mean, people like Charlotte, who was considered, maybe the best wrestler in the world at points, was out for basically 6 months, so you can't really have her in the conversation. And a woman who we thought might be the best wrestler out there now in WWE, Tessa Blanchard, had contract disputes with TNA or Impact Wrestling, and she went down to Mexico with Daga, and she hasn't been in the conversation. So she's not in our running, but we'll talk about, a lot of people this year who kind of shined, and we just spoke about Charlotte, and she made her big return this past week. So, Jay, where would you like to start? Would you want to start with the return of Charlotte? Would you want to start with, the great year Io had again? How would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte's in the news, so we'll talk about her. We've talked about NXT a lot in this program. If you guys have listened to us, we are, by the way, we're at Work Shoot Pod, WROKED Shoot Pod on Twitter and also on Instagram. And if you guys are watching us, great. If you want to listen to us and not see our ugly mugs, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Just type in Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. So we've talked about this a lot, specifically NXT and Io and what they have. So let's start with the main roster that maybe we don't talk about the women as much as, well, there's reasons for that because they're not booked well. I don't want to start off really negative. The return of Charlotte is good. We speculated that's why Lana was, they built up Lana only to not have her on the program and not have her in the match. But the return of Charlotte, it was a good match. We figured she would win. I think we kind of talked about a pre-show, but I think we both thought, okay, this might be setting up, the whole John Cena, Shawn Michaels winning the tag titles and then eventually feuding against each other. Maybe another match at WrestleMania. So I could definitely see that. I think it was good that they won. The whatever they did on Raw, the promos that they had written for them were horrible. But she sparked some interest in the product, right? Like, I think Charlotte is a little overrated, and I think they stuff her down our throats a little bit. And I also think the Queen stuff, she can kind of, get rid of that stuff a little bit. but overall, she's a star. She's a female star. She's a star on their brand, and they can definitely use her.
Agreed. I mean, one thing that you see is, and also with the men, especially with like tag team matches, which we're going to see for, I don't know how long we'll see before, you have the eventual turn or just setting up, the big match at either the Rumble or WrestleMania between her and Asuka, which looks like more than likely where they go. And you even saw that in the beginning of the program before you saw the interruption was, Charlotte basically just getting ready to say, all right, I'm going to challenge you for that title. Is that now that Charlotte's there, she's going to get the majority of the wins. And, you see like with Shayna Baszler, you're always going to protect a certain person, where even though Nia Jax is the much lesser of the two of her team as a worker, Shayna always takes the pin. And in this respect, Charlotte's going to get, the pins for her team. Just like it's similar idea, you're going to get like Ruby Riott right now gets a lot of the pins in her matches, like with Liv and different respects. I think right away you're seeing with the return of Charlotte, she's the biggest star now that she's back, and it'll be interesting to see how other people are going to be, who she's going to make look better now that she's back. One of the big things with her match with Rhea Ripley.
I mean, of course, she's not going to make anybody look better, right? Like that hasn't been Charlotte's thing.
Well, that was the problem with, the WrestleMania match with Rhea Ripley. Like the whole thing going in was, is she going to make Rhea look like a bigger star? I mean, it was one of the better matches at WrestleMania, but coming out of it, and even when she dropped the title in the three-way, which was one of the best women's matches of the year, maybe one of the best matches of the year, Rhea and Io, neither one of them pinned Charlotte. Charlotte coming out of that didn't really make anyone look better, I mean,
yeah, but she's not. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting off on tangents here, but I don't really think that she's still whatever early 30s. I mean, I don't know if she's retiring anytime soon. I know she signed with some sports agency and she's going to try to do some different type of work, maybe acting. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon. And her job isn't to get people over right now. I mean, it should be, but that's not how WWE books her. They don't book her to do that. They book her to win matches. She is the female version of Roman Reigns to a certain extent. Although what they've done with Reigns over the last couple months has been different than what they did with him before. So that's not really what she does, or that's not really how they book her. And that's not really her fault. That's just not how she's booked. So, we'll see. We're kind of getting off on tangents here, but I think the point is, I think we're going to see Asuka against Charlotte, WrestleMania. I think it could be a great match. And I fully expect Charlotte to win the match, and for her to get the title again. And maybe, Becky Lynch at that point will have had 6 months with her child at home. Maybe at that point she decides to come back. Who knows? Maybe she doesn't. Who knows? But maybe that's a point where we see Becky, or we see some reshaping of things with all these women in the NXT women's division. And maybe there's a vaccine, so they start to combine these shows a little bit more. So we'll kind of see what happens. But I think there are some interesting directions that they can go with Charlotte moving forward. I would love for them to just continue to book her strong. But if she's going against women, she's not as who she's more over than. Give them a chance, have them get put over a little bit. But we'll see what happens with Charlotte.
Now, do you think now there's something we could talk about long-term later on, but as we talk about the year that was, do you think her time in NXT was successful, or do you think it was kind of nothing really that special, because basically she won the title and then she was basically gone in a flash, and she really didn't put anybody over when she left? Do you think
I enjoyed her in NXT. I enjoyed her, the Bianca Belair stuff. And again, it was so different because there were fans there then, you know what I mean? She brought a star level to NXT, and the women are tremendous, obviously. We know that. But as much as I love the NXT women's division, Charlotte is a bigger star than all of them. So her being there makes the presence of the NXT women's division even more. So no, I thought it was a great time for her in NXT for the little time that she was there. I think She was very impactful, and she could have kept the title longer. But no, I thought, but it was a great time to put Io and put her in the spot that she's in now, as you know, other than Reigns, I guess you could say McIntyre, I don't know, but Io might be the most dominant champion in the WWE right now. So yeah, no, I think Charlotte's time in NXT was tremendous. I really enjoyed it, actually.
Now, with Charlotte and Becky both being on the shelf for the majority of 2020, the big star on Monday Night Raw was Asuka. And she's one of the people who I would have to say is one of the contenders for female wrestler of the year. Unfortunately, though, with no fans and the way that she some people would say, she was gifted the title with, she did win Money in the Bank, but with the way, with Becky, with the pregnancy, and basically she basically didn't win the title by beating Becky. What did you think of her year with kind of basically half the year? She really didn't defend the title. She was stuck in, tag team matches and different things. Do you think she had a great year because she did have the really good matches with Bayley and Sasha, or do you think it was an okay year? How would you think of her year? But especially the fact that her character work being more on the mic and different things. What would you say of her?
Yeah, I mean, I love Asuka, right? Like, we could say who the best wrestler in the world is, but I think she kind of is at the top of the list, whether she's 1, 2, or 3, right? I mean, she's carried the Raw Women's division since Becky left. Charlotte hasn't been there. Obviously Bayley and Sasha were there, but Sasha and Bayley were kind of on SmackDown too when they were doing stuff. I mean, she's had to carry that division basically on her back. There was no other real star for her to go against on a consistent basis. I know you had Bayley and Sasha there, but they were kind of, they had the tag titles too. So it really was kind of up to Asuka. And then obviously we, toward the end of the year, we had Sasha and Bayley going against each other. So it's been not an easy year for Asuka. And I think that shows you how good she actually is. That she has done so good on Raw with being the only person. But I do think it takes some shine away from her, because I do think the idea that she didn't have a great feud. She had great matches with Bayley, great matches with Sasha, the Kairi Sane thing, and maybe you could say the Bayley feud and Bayley and Sasha against her was a great feud. I don't know that I would say that necessarily, but one could say that. So I don't know that Asuka had that amazing feud that lasted for months that really vaulted her to the top performer because of that. I think she's had to kind of carry some of this on her shoulders.
So the other person on Monday Night Raw who spent the majority of the year on SmackDown, but who would be, I would say, in the characterization for female wrestler of the year, would be, and not because of her in-ring work, but because of her character work, who I think has been on another level, especially with the stuff she's had in the second half of the year with The Fiend, is Alexa Bliss. Her in-ring work has always been not her strong suit, but the stuff she's done as a gimmick and her promos and everything else has been on another level. What did you think of her year so far as a whole?
I mean, she hasn't wrestled. So,
but two parts of the game is what you do.
Yeah, but one part of the game she doesn't do. One part of the game she hasn't done. So I can't put her in a category any of these women we're mentioning.
Okay.
She's been great in the role that she's had. I think she's been spectacular in a role that she's had. She's great on the mic, we know that. But in terms of female wrestlers of the year, I mean, I couldn't put her in the category of any of these women. But in terms of what she's done with what she's been given, I think she's been spectacular at it, and she's been very entertaining.
Okay, I mean, I would agree with you on that. I mean, as of right now, in our quick votes so far, she's had 2 votes. I mean, right, with the person who's leading the vote right now with 5 right off the bat, who we'll talk about next, is Bayley, who held the title for I believe, over 300 days, actually almost 400 days. She was the PWI Wrestler of the Year. She's basically was the face of SmackDown. I would say that other than, Io Shirai, at least for the WWE, I think she's mostly had mostly the best year for a female wrestler. I think it would be hard for WWE wise to think of anyone besides her or Io Shirai. So maybe I'm kind of showing my hand who I think are the 1A, 1B, at least for the WWE wise. What's your thoughts on Bayley as, Wrestler of the Year in her year so far?
Yeah, I mean, Bayley she has to be up there, if not number one, number two. The work that she's done, her mic work has been very good. Her in-ring work, I mean, she's been wrestling. Now she's wrestled some good opponents with Nikki Cross and things like that, but she's, had to wrestle a lot of different opponents. She had a good match with Tamina on the pay-per-view. She's wrestled Naomi. I mean, she wrestled Naomi a bunch. So she's had to wrestle some women on SmackDown who were not, to her caliber. And she's had good matches. I mean, when's the last time you watched a Bayley match? You're like, that wasn't a good match. Yeah. I mean, she always puts on good performances. So yeah, I mean, she'd have to be number one or number two for me, for Female Wrestler of the Year. Her match with Sasha, that Hell in a Cell match, was great. I do think that feud left a little bit to be desired. I don't know if that was on Sasha and Bayley. I don't know if that was on the writing team, on creative, but it was a good feud. It just wasn't a great feud. But Bayley was awesome all year long. She really was. So yeah, I mean, there's not much else I can say. She was absolutely fantastic. There's not better wrestlers in the world, female or male, than her. I mean, just the consistency of her performances, I mean, that match she had against Tamina was a really good match. And I'm not saying Tamina's terrible. She's a veteran. She's been around for a long time. She's not bad. But I think that with the right opponent, if she doesn't have the right opponent, it could be not good. And Bayley helped her, to a very, very good match. You talk about, and I know whatever, we're talking about 2020, but you go back to Nia Jax's best matches in NXT or on the main roster, they're with her, undoubtedly. So yeah, Bayley is just spectacular.
Absolutely. And you know what? And as we're talking about Alexa Bliss, her gimmick being the role model and even the turn this year, she went from being the quote unquote white meat baby face who was the fan favorite to turning heel this year. And a lot of people thought she would never be able to be anything more than the babyface character. And she's basically what people in AEW would hope Britt Baker is. She's the total package of what Britt Baker is, one half of the equation, and Bayley is the full package of what AEW would hope Britt Baker is on the promo side. You know what I mean, Jay?
Yeah, I agree. I think Britt Baker is spectacular in her role.
Oh no, I agree.
It's not really a fair comparison, because Britt Baker just isn't the performer that Bayley. I mean, there's not many women or men that are. So I just don't think it's a fair comparison. I think, Britt Baker, like a lot of the women in AEW, need more time. They need to wrestle more matches. They need to get better. How much is Britt Baker wrestling? So, a lot of that comes down to reps and things like that. So I don't think that's really a fair comparison, but yeah, I mean, Bayley has been absolutely tremendous.
The other person on SmackDown who was on our list here is Sasha Banks, who the absolute, the boss, who's outside the ring, has gone mainstream with the Mandalorian this past year, which doesn't count, of course, but she's become more of a star in that respect. She's great on the mic. She's had really good matches like the Hell in the Cell.
I wouldn't say she's great on the mic. Let's.
Oh, she's solid.
She's okay. She's okay. She's okay. She's fine.
Okay.
She does enough. She does enough to get by because she's so good in the ring. She will go down as one of my all-time favorite female wrestlers, maybe one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I think she just wrestles such good matches. You know what I mean? It's like Bayley and Sasha are just, and Asuka are just on another level. And I think Charlotte is great. I don't think Charlotte is where they are, only because Charlotte sometimes has not great matches. Occasionally, where those three are just so consistent. Every time out, they're just wrestling. Their matches are just great. And Sasha's one of them. Just great matches. I think her promos were, she's gotten better. She's gotten way better than where she was before. But sometimes she still struggles. But yeah, she's a star. Her matches are great. I mean, that match against Carmella, that's one of Carmella's best matches she's ever had, right? And a lot of that was due to Sasha. And it was due to Carmella's improvement, obviously, as well. But a lot of that was due to Sasha. So, she's absolutely spectacular. And she's right up there in terms of the top women in the company, top women in pro wrestling, top wrestlers in wrestling.
Agreed. And, it's going to be interesting to see where they go. And we'll talk about a little bit more as we go along, where they are in the long run. And I guess there was actually one more person on the list from SmackDown who I'm not sure how we judge, because she was off TV for part of the, for a chunk of the year. But Bianca Belair and the stuff she did the first half of the year in NXT, with the Royal Rumble, with her performance, and what she's done since going on to SmackDown, I think is an interesting case. I don't think she's in that top tier, but I think what she can do going forward makes her an interesting case on where she could be, in the future. So I think her name getting out there, but I don't think she's ready to be considered for this year's Wrestler of the Year. But I think her beginning of her year and the end, I think, shows she does have promise.
She's got a long way to go to get to any of those three women, Asuka, Bayley, or Sasha, Absolutely. Or Charlotte. She has a long, Io, Tony Storm, Rhea. I mean, she's got a real long way to go. And she's on the main roster. And so sometimes booking is a little dicey. So I think it's going to be hard for her to, I mean, this year or 2021, there's no way she'll be up there. And in a couple of years, possibly. But I think a lot of her performance is going to come down to, one, her continued improvement in the ring, which I think she'll do. It sounds like she's a hard worker. She's super bright. She's got charisma. Like, she's going to be great. But a lot of this is going to come down to her booking and how much they trust her, and how much they do of her more than just her, saying she's the EST. Right. What other layers to her character develop? And then how good in the ring does she develop? Can she eventually carry women who are not as good as her to matches? Or does she have to continue to be carried? All those things are going to kind of come into play with her in terms of a prospect or, whatever, obviously. I mean, she's the greatest. She's probably the best athlete in pro wrestling. I mean, maybe not, obviously her husband's pretty good athlete too. But when you combine strength and power and speed, and she's a track athlete, she can jump out of the gym, she can lift up. I mean, she is just a ridiculous athlete, and she's got a lot of charisma. They do a good job with her on Talking Smack. She's on Talking Smack all the time. She seems like a really sweet person. So, they did a good job in NXT of playing, like, talking about how she came up and, being on a track team in college. And I hope they do more of that on SmackDown, talking about her past and what she's done in the past to get to this point. So, yeah, I mean, she is the dream for WWE, right? Absolutely. WWE gets an athlete out of college who I don't think Bianca Belair has had any experience before WWE. So, an athlete, a pure athlete, and they train her and they build her up to the superstar that she is now. So that's the dream, right? So we'll see where she kind of continues, but obviously the sky is the limit if she's booked right.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, she's got all the ability in the world.
So every week, we say that our favorite favorite night of the week is Wednesday, and there's a couple of people on the Wednesday shows that I would say you would characterize for wrestler of the year.
I think there's one. I think there's literally one. You give me more than one.
I think there's
wrestler. I'm talking about having good, consistent matches throughout the year.
Yeah, I think there's a couple.
Okay, I'm all ears.
All right, I mean, like I said, I've already said who I think my wrestler of the year.
Well, go ahead. Just go ahead with the other people who are trying to tell me.
All right, so Io Shirai, of course, is the obvious one, so we'll start with her.
Yeah. I was thinking AEW. That's my bad. I will take the hit for that.
Right,
I was thinking of AEW, not NXT. Yes.
Right, do you want to start with AEW? We can start with AEW and save the best.
Yeah, because AEW, I think there's just one.
All right. I mean, I had a couple of people for AEW, but all right. Because it's also, we're highlighting the best of people. But all right, I had three people. I had Thunder Rosa, who is AEW/NWA.
All right.
I had Shida, who's their champion. Then I had Britt Baker. I was highlighting the three there.
Right. So okay, we'll kind of go one by one. Shida has been great. She's wrestled great matches. The Abaddon thing has been a little bit strange toward the end of the year here. And I think she's really been hurt by the fact that she hasn't had the level of opponent consistently to kind of challenge her. Thunder Rosa and Nyla Rose have really been good for her, but some of her she's had to wrestle a lot of opponents that are not even, they don't sniff her level.
Gotcha.
Britt Baker has been she's been. Now, if you want to put Britt Baker as the most entertaining wrestler of the year, I think she might be that. I mean, that waiting room thing, and I encourage everyone, if you're listening to our show, to watch AEW Dark. Don't watch all 3 hours. It's mostly squash matches. But she does this waiting room show every week. I don't know if it's every week, but
it is every week.
It is every week. Okay. So I watched this week with SCU, and
right.
I usually miss a week or two. I saw the Acclaimed on there. It is gold. It's like comedy gold. It is so fucking funny, Corey. It's so funny. Every week I'm like dying laughing, and I think everybody would laugh. I don't think it's just like a corny wrestling thing. I think it's like she's funny on there.
Yeah.
So she's great. Her storyline with Big Swole was interesting until they had a match, and then and that's where that's Britt Baker's thing, is she's great until the match, and that's where she falls flat. And Thunder Rosa, I absolutely I will take another L for Thunder Rosa. I totally forgot about her because I was thinking about her in the NWA, but she's been up there too, and she's been amazing. Unfortunately for her, she was kind of gone for a little bit. And I know they did the NWA pay-per-views, but like we weren't really watching those like that. So she was kind of gone for a little bit on television. And it's been a little bit kind of stop and start with her with the NWA title, and then she's going for the AEW title. But I think they're kind of hitting their stride with her a little bit now, with her cutting promos now and her talking more. And the fact that she's more entrenched in AEW. I think she's kind of now an AEW wrestler. So yeah, she's obviously tremendous. I've been a big fan of hers for, since she started appearing on NWA. I think, and she's got an MMA background. She's Latinx. I mean, she's got everything you could want in terms of in-ring work, and she's getting better on the mic. I mean, she's one who could be, if she's booked right. The problem is AEW is going to have some women for her to wrestle. But if they do book her right, like if she was on the main roster WWE, if she was in NXT, easily could be the female superstar of the year, very easily. I just think the lack of other talent is what's really going to hold her back.
I see all your points there. I mean, I think Britt Baker has one half of what it takes to be a star. The other half, that's
and probably the most important half, being entertaining and being good in promos and having the audience be emotionally connected to you is probably more important than being amazing in the ring. but she's gotta do better at getting that. But it's gonna be hard. She's busy. She's a dentist. She tells you every week. But you need, they've talked about this, and Jim Ross has talked about this, and people talk shit about him. But you need reps, right? You need to wrestle a lot to get better. And Britt Baker's wrestling once, a couple times a month, maybe. It's hard to get better when you're not wrestling all the time. Then you're relying on spots and things like that, and it gets harder. So I think she's going to always be entertaining. I think she's always going to be great in terms of that stuff. But I think her matches are going to fall flat. But again, she's going against Thunder Rosa in this feud. So I think that could be a really, really fantastic match. But they've got to figure out some women in the mid card who she can wrestle to and continue to improve.
And I think that's and just very quickly on that, I think that's one of the beauties of AEW Dark. I think they're going to be able to find with some of these enhancement matches. I think they're going to be able to find some of the people for the future to find people. So I think that's where we could get interesting and see where that goes. And I think Shida's had a very good year. I think that, especially listening to some interviews that she's done, she's only been doing this for not that long of a period of time. I think Thunder Rosa, from where she started as a couple of years ago, I think she's gotten very good. I mean, I think the idea what she's done outside of NWA with Mission Pro Wrestling, with helping training people now at the School with Jazz, I think that's been very interesting. I think that where we see things going in the next year, especially with, Britt and Thunder, where they had their match, and where they go forward, if they go back to Shida with that feud, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff where they can go with those three women. And maybe, I don't think she's where we go in the future with Nyla and other people if Rio comes back. I think the women's division can grow as, restrictions continue to go, and maybe AEW gets better in the next year. So we'll see how that goes,
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, and I think Nyla Rose has a lot of potential too. She really needs good opponents though. She needs to go against really good people, or else it's really a struggle for her. But I think with Nyla Rose, just really quickly, I think one of the things I think was her detriment was them putting her with Vicky Guerrero. She's good on the mic. She's like, I'm a terrifying beast and I will kill you. That's all she needs to do. That's all she needs to say. And then she goes out and does it. They don't need her, they don't need a gimmick person to say, do excuse me and whatever. They don't need that. So I think that was a mistake by AEW. They want to give everybody a manager, and some people you could use a manager. And some people can just use them, but are elevated by them. And FTR's thing, Tully Blanchard's promo was awesome this week. And then some people are kind of hampered by it, which I think is Nyla Rose's case.
Yeah, it's a shame. I guess they became friends backstage, and I guess just felt like two of them together might have worked, but sometimes it doesn't. But going back to NXT, the other half of the Wednesday Night Delight, I picked 3 people for this. I mean, you could have picked 17 people. Maybe not indie wrestling, which I thought was hysterical last night, but we support indie wrestling.
We support them. I mean, it was just the weird. I mean, those segments are just the weirdest shit, man. You either kind of love them or they're just real weird wrestling. Like my wife would look at these segments and be like, "What is this shit?" Yeah. And I totally get it. Mm-hmm. And it is a total dorky wrestling thing, and they're really dumb, but they are very, very funny. But anyway.
So, but the 3 people I chose, and Jay, if there's someone else who you thought we should have put in, you could say, but Io Shirai, of course, who I think should win this, but I don't think she will because I unfortunately put her, at the bottom of the list by accident here. Io, Rhea Ripley, and Candice LaRae.
Yeah, I think they're all pretty good. I think there's probably nobody. I think Dakota Kai can get some love. I think Tegan Knox before an injury could get some love. I think Sasha Blackheart, who's I love everything about her, her gimmick, who she is.
I was just thinking
I
because of the whole
think she's a
entire year.
badass. No, I agree. I'm just giving them love. I don't think they're there, but I'm just kind of giving them love. I mean, Io would have to be, you know, 1A, 1B. Out of the Wednesday night, on Wednesday nights, she'd be number one. Maybe, so she's been absolutely tremendous. I think she's talking more in English. I don't know if she knew this level of English before, or if she's like learned it, but I think she can talk enough in English to get herself over because her character's so good. And NXT has done such a great thing with her, where they do these vignettes with her where she's speaking in Japanese and she's putting herself over. I don't think they would do that in the main roster. They would have her do the Asuka talking Japanese thing, and then no one really knows what she's saying, and it would be like that. But what they do with her, how they highlight her and make her feel like a star, like when she was like yesterday, she's like, she told the guy, "Play my music," and she just came out. Like that's a star can do that, right? So I think the way what NXT's done and how they've booked her and how everybody's going after her, that's a star. When everybody wants to beat you for your title, that means you're number one. Toni Storm, Ripley, now Mercedes Martinez. I think what they've done with her has been tremendous, and that's how you book a champion. For everybody else watching, okay, every other company watching, that's how you book a champion. The way they book Io. So she's been great. Rhea Ripley had a great run at the beginning. I think probably the match she had with Charlotte at WrestleMania was probably the best match in WrestleMania. So, she's been great this year. Raquel Gonzalez, some love to Raquel Gonzalez too. And Candice LaRae, I don't think she's had the level of matches that Rhea Ripley or Io have had. But as a character, as a heel character, what she's done with her heel turn, I think she's been tremendous as well.
Yeah, like I said, it's been a great year for NXT, especially which you've said multiple times that NXT, if they wanted to, could just be an all women's product. And I think maybe, I don't know if it would have as many people watched as they do, now, but it could carry itself as a woman's brand. And I would watch it every week on its own just for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they do some good stuff with the men, and they certainly have. But I think the most compelling stuff they do in general is with the women. Yep. In general, not always, obviously. Like I love what they did with Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor going back to their last match. I mean, they do some good things, but I mean, Rhea Ripley against Raquel Gonzalez, that's the most kind of potentially compelling feud in NXT, I think. So, and NXT books the women like they're a big part of the show. I feel like when AEW books women's segments, it's like, oh, well, we got the women's segments, and JR is spending half the time just trying to put over how great of athletes these women are. Where that's not what's happening in NXT. They're as important as the men are, and they're not just like a supplemental part. They are the part. And I think NXT does a much better job of doing that than AEW. But also in AEW's defense, they don't have that level of talent. Now you could say that's AEW's fault to a certain extent, but maybe not. Like it'd be hard to get that sort of roster that NXT has. So yeah, I think that's a big part of why these women are. That's why we can name 3, 4, 5 women on NXT that have done so well because of how they're booked.
Absolutely. And the 2 other people that you have to put on the list, and hopefully they'll get some more buzz as a result of this, hopefully crossover between AEW and Impact Wrestling. The woman who we spoke about at the very beginning of the show, Deonna Purrazzo, who basically was lost in the NXT system, and Jordynne Grace, who both had really good years. Jordynne Grace the year before had a very good year with her feud with Tessa Blanchard, but once Tessa Blanchard left, she was able to shine more the first half of the year. And when Deonna Purrazzo was released, she shined. They gave her a shot to had faith in her and put the spotlight. And as the virtuoso, she has really shined in the second half of this year. And I don't think she'll get the votes because Impact isn't known as a major brand, being on Access TV and the stench of it, over the, last, decade basically. But Dina Purrazzo, and having, watched the second half of the year, she's been a revelation since she's, come over.
Yeah, she's been good. I enjoyed the Jordynne Grace feud. I think, things kind of got messed up with the LaRae thing, obviously, because LaRae retired. So I think, and now she's going against Su Yung, and Su Yung has got the Undead Bride thing. So it's been a little bit wonky toward the end of the year here, but I think she's been great. I just want to give some love to Randy Hammond on our the Facebook group, who's talking about Britt Baker. He noted, she's a great character, and talked about how, the being entertaining thing is way more important than the in-ring stuff. And he highlighted that Hogan, Austin, Rock, Cena were not the best in-ring guys. I think Austin was spectacular. The other three guys, I think I would agree with him. But yeah, and just that idea. And Randy's co-host of The Audible, which you can check out. What day is that? Is that on quarantine?
On Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays. Okay. So a football show. So yeah, I think that obviously that's an important part, and being entertaining is important. And it's why I think the 2021 female wrestler of the year could be Sasha, because I think she very much is who she is, and she's very entertaining, and she's very good on the mic. And I think she speaks to a certain member of the audience, and could do, some really, really good things down the line. As far as Impact goes, I agree with Deonna Purrazzo. We don't need to go into Impact too much, because I don't know how much of our audience watches some of them, but
sure.
I would say over the last 6 months when I've been watching it more, definitely Deonna Purrazzo. But just in general, they do a good job with their women's division. But I don't know if there's been, other than Deonna Purrazzo, there's been one standout person. I think LaRae had a chance to be that, but unfortunately, she had to retire. So yeah, definitely. But there's some Impact women that if they book them strong, they could really be there next year, and hopefully they'll get more spotlight with AEW.
So quickly, one of the other categories you put up there, we'll do this very fast. Who is the breakout female star of the COVID era so far? The people on there were Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker, Kiera Hogan, who I wanted to give a little bit of shine, because since leaving NWA, I think she's had a great debut being part of the tag team. Dana Purrazzo, Raquel Gonzalez, and Shotzi Blackheart, who two people I think next year could be two of the biggest stars in NXT if they don't go up to the main roster. Jay, I saw you voted for Thunder Rosa.
Yeah.
Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker right now both have 2 votes. I haven't voted yet. I think I would vote for Dina Purrazzo because of what she's done, with the resurgence since leaving NXT.
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? Like, we just don't watch her enough on TV, and and it's hard to say, we're being the marks for AEW and NXT, but it's hard. You think about like Raquel Gonzalez and what she's done, and I might put her down as the breakout star.
That's very possible. Right.
Breakout star in terms of like Thunder Rosa's been wrestling for a long time. I think she either has or had her own promotion.
She does have Mission Pro Wrestling, yeah.
We just didn't know about her, whereas Raquel Gonzalez, I think is more kind of, I don't know that she's a veteran of the business. So she's a little bit more out of nowhere. So, but any of the women you can give it to are well-deserving. It's like, just so you guys know, we've talked about this. I do sports betting. And I'm trying to figure out how to bet on most improved player in the NBA. And how do you bet on that? Do you bet on Durant because he was out for last year? Do you bet on someone who actually gets incrementally better? Same thing with Breakout. Like, how do you do Breakout? Is it someone who's new to us? Is it someone who improved over last year? That can be kind of a hard thing to figure out. So really, that's up to the eye of the beholder. But any of those women you mentioned are absolute breakout stars for sure.
Another thing was female match of the year. And for those who watch Shine and Shimmer, we're only doing US only based, because like I said, even though there will be a match from Shimmer, I believe, or on Wrestle Kingdom in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, neither me or Jay really had a chance to watch any Japanese wrestling females this year. Hopefully in the coming years we'll have a chance. But a couple that I put up there was Io Shirai versus Rhea Ripley from earlier this month. It's one of the standout matches. I know it was late in the year. Bayley versus Sasha from Hell in the Cell. Thunder Rosa versus Priscilla Kelly, which I had a chance to see. I don't think Jake got a chance to watch it. It was on the Shockwave a couple of weeks ago. Most people thought it was one of the best matches of the year. Dakota Kai versus Tegan Knox from NXT TakeOver Portland. Io Shirai, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair from In Your House. Nyla Rose versus versus Shida, Double or Nothing. And I guess you could have put, which I forgot about, Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley from WrestleMania this past year.
You also could have put Allison Kay against Thunder Rosa earlier in the year as well. So
that was a really good match.
There was a bunch. So I put Io and Rhea Ripley because of recency bias.
Mm-hmm.
I also, just being frank, I just saw that match.
Sure.
I also, it was one of those matches where I really thought they could have Rhea Ripley win the match. So I really didn't think, Io's definitely going to win this. And I love matches like that. So I was really compelled by not knowing who was going to win the match. Where the Mania match with Charlotte and Rhea Ripley, I knew, they always have Charlotte wins. Default mode is Charlotte wins. So I figured Charlotte would win. I think that the Io Rhea match, I really wasn't sure who was going to win. There were a bunch of near falls. So that'd be the match I would give. But I think, you could have done Thunder Rosa against Shida in one of the last pay-per-views. There's a bunch of different matches you could have had. The triple threat match I thought was good, but I wouldn't put the triple threat match. The Hell in a Cell match, I don't know if it was the best match, but those women took the scariest fucking bumps. I mean, I thought one of them was good. I thought for sure one of them was going to get a concussion. I mean, it wasn't, when Sasha takes these bumps, man, and I feel like she's going to be like they're like Sasha Blackheart. I feel like she's going to, it was the absolutely the scariest bumps I've ever seen from a match. I was like scared watching for the women. But the match was a great match. So I would have put that match in there too, but I think that match was a little bit more predictable. Figure Sasha would kind of overcome her demons and win the match. But I'd say Io and Rhea for me was the top one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have gone with the three-way match at In Your House. I think that kind of was, especially with the dive by Io, and even though as much as I went and killed earlier in the episode Charlotte for not taking the pin and not putting anybody over, I just think Io truly looked like a star that night, and she's had such a good title run since then. And I think that was just the building block. So I think that was the big moment for Io. And I think she's been, most likely the wrestler of the year, and that was her moment. And I think that built everything going forward. So I think that was most likely. And you could have put, and I totally forgot about what's saying right now, Candice versus Io was, last year, I think they had the match of the year. I think their match earlier this year, I think could have been the match of the year on NXT with the ladder match. I don't know if you remember that match. That was spectacular as well.
Candice LeRae, Io. Yeah, that was a great match too. I mean, there were a lot. I mean, there were really a lot, and for the pandemic and all the stuff that happened, and Becky not being there, who's had just tremendous matches. This has been a really good year of women's wrestling, for even all the stuff that's kind of happened.
Absolutely. So, looking to the future here for a few moments, the usually my favorite night of the year besides Wrestle Kingdom is the Royal Rumble. This will be, I think, year 4 of the Women's Royal Rumble. I think you'll have most likely two title matches, most likely. They could go with the Charlotte Asuka match, or they wait for WrestleMania for that. But I think that you're going to most likely have Sasha versus Bayley, or Sasha versus Carmella, or Sasha versus Bianca Belair, as your match on the Smackdown side. I think those would be your 3 ideas for that. But
I think the interesting thing is beyond the matches for the Royal Rumble
who wins
is
it?
who wins it.
Mhm.
The matches are whatever. A lot of times these matches don't affect anything. If anyone remembers Bob Holly against Brock Lesnar years ago, oftentimes these Royal Rumble matches don't really. They're great matches, and it's really cool because generally they give these singles matches longer time because you have the Royal Rumble, which is an hour, and then you have these singles matches, and they get to kind of stand out a little bit more. I still think the triple threat match with Rollins, Lesnar, and Cena, which is one of my all-time favorite matches. But I think who wins these Royal Rumbles? I think, excuse me. I mean, they're already saying Carmella is going to go against Sasha again. I think they might be having a rematch. It might be this week. It might be this Friday.
No, this Friday is it's going to be a 3-way tag team match with Asuka and Charlotte versus Belair and Sasha and Carmella and Bayley.
Okay, so maybe they have a rematch at the Royal Rumble then. And for Asuka and Charlotte, maybe they go against Blackheart and Nia again. Who cares? I think what happens after this is interesting. I think Asuka and Charlotte's pretty set in stone. I do think Sasha is going to be the one to hold the title. I think it's going to be some type of triple threat. I could see Bianca Belair getting in there. I don't think Carmella will be there.
Bayley?
Bayley should be there, but they can't just do Sasha Bayley again, and they can't do Asuka Charlotte again. They're gonna have to do some different flavor on version of this than we've seen, and that could be a way to elevate a Bianca Belair or elevate, who knows? I mean, we haven't seen Nikki Cross in a long time, and I think she's spectacular too. So, we'll see. I think Raw's going to be a bit more straightforward, maybe, and I think SmackDown they're going to kind of try to get cute a little bit.
Could we see a Rhea Ripley, lose this feud to Raquel and go up to the main roster and be a surprise winner of the Royal Rumble? Could we see, a Sashi? Could we see? I mean, I think Candice LaRae is, kind of now in this feud in this stable with the
yeah. I think Rhea Ripley would be Rhea Ripley would be the person, and maybe Io, like an Io Asuka WrestleMania match. Oh, I mean that'd be amazing. But also the idea that they don't want to do 2 Japanese women against each other when their English is not great, and they've got to speak English. They've got to speak the language of America. There's that whole thing with Vince. So who knows? But I think that match would be just amazing. So
of course, it's too soon for. I'm sorry to interrupt. Too soon for a return of Becky Lynch.
Oh, absolutely.
But we got the big name, which keep on being rumors that she's not going to AEW because they don't like her attitude. And they want to keep a happy locker room. But could we see Royal Rumble and just shut to the top because of the name value for father, Tessa Blanchard? Could we see her? Get
it wouldn't be the name value of her father. It'd be because she's.
Well, I mean, just the fact.
Yeah. People might know her name, but I mean.
And if that's the case, is that the biggest match you could do with her is Flair versus Blanchard though?
So maybe Charlotte wins up. Maybe Charlotte wins the title at Royal Rumble then.
Yeah,
that would be. But how would the fans respond to that? Do people know about Tessa Blanchard?
I mean, how hard is that? I mean, how hard would that story be to do? I mean, you could do. I mean, I know that you can't have.
Well, it's less about doing the story, but it's more about what people care about the story. People don't know who she is yet, so they're going to be spending all this time on TV trying to make her relevant.
2 months usually of promos and highlight packages of stuff, and you could.
Where are they going to get their highlight packages from? She was on One Mae Young Classic. She wrestled one match, probably the best match of the whole tournament, by the way. I think it was against Io. I forget who it was, but it was the best match of the tournament. But they don't have that. They don't have that much to say. They don't have that much information on her. I don't know. I mean, is she a big enough star? Like if there was a crowd, would the crowd? I'll ask you, if there was a crowd,
right?
And she came out and won this. Now try to think not of smart Mark wrestling fan who does a podcast every week, thinking about it from just whatever standpoint. Do you think the crowd would have a big pop for her, or do you think they'd be like, I don't. Who is she? What does she do? What does she do here? And just the fact that you have to think about it like that is why she shouldn't win it. The idea that you even have to like think about that is why she shouldn't win it. Now, she's great. I think you could have a match. I think she'd be a great person to bring in after WrestleMania. And now, then you start a program with her, and maybe you have a program with her and Charlotte, and Charlotte's not the champion, and then you can do that stuff. But the marquee match at WrestleMania, these women's matches are not like just there now. They're marquee matches. I don't know.
Now joining a new name to the chat, welcoming to the Wrestling Life, Calum Church put in 2 comments. We have Charlotte would get nuclear heat. The Women's Rumble will be won by either Charlotte or Ripley. The other option will be return of Ronda for Ronda versus Charlotte. And we spoke about for a moment, before we went on the air, about maybe a return of Ronda Rousey. She made some, comments, about how the one thing she truly hated about being here was, WWE was being on the road, but, they're just coming from basically Florida right now, so there wouldn't be a road schedule. I mean, there are constant rumors that, she's been trying to get pregnant. We don't know if she is pregnant. We haven't really seen her that much. I know she has a fighter in the UFC, which she manages, but.
Does she? I didn't know that. That's cool that she has that.
But, what about Ronda Rousey? She is a huge star. I mean, her coming in for a couple of dates, getting mainstream publicity. I mean, I'm sure the workers wouldn't love the fact that, just another part-time person coming in and stealing the spotlight. But I mean, it would bring in,
fuck them, right? Like, what are we doing here? I mean, no offense to Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott, who I love Ruby Riott. She's fantastic. But I mean, Ronda Rousey's a star. I mean, what are we doing here? Yeah, I mean, Rousey could absolutely. I mean, it would make a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense. I mean, it'll be April. They'll hope to have some people have the vaccine by then. So maybe they could have. It can't be 80,000 people. I don't know that we're going to see that for a really long time, but they could have a bunch of fans in an arena.
It's Florida.
It is Florida, but I think even Florida is, I mean, they can't have 20,000 people there yet.
Dumb run.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, it would be interesting. It would really be interesting if it was Rousey. Would she make for the best match? No. But they do all this training shit in secret. And the fact that there's less people around because of the pandemic, it might even be more secretive whether she's training. But also she could be with child, so we don't know. But that would certainly be interesting speculation. But man, I would not want it to be Charlotte against Rousey. I really wouldn't. I really would not. I think her against Asuka, kind of tailors herself as a submission specialist with Rousey's MMA background. You could easily say Rousey's like, I want to go against the best, and Asuka, you are the best, and you're the one I want to go against, and I haven't gone against you. And they could tell an interesting story, even with Asuka's like limited English, which I think she speaks better English than they kind of show on TV. But I think that could be an interesting story, and it could be a way to elevate Asuka. You have Asuka beat her, and then now, so yeah, I think Rousey is not out of the realm of possibility if she's available, which we don't know, but she's definitely the biggest name they could bring in. I think Tessa would be a post WrestleMania person to bring in.
Yeah, night after night after.
Because she's a night after WrestleMania person that the hardcore fans would go crazy about.
Yeah, especially if there was somehow a crowd, but who knows if when we'll get.
Yeah, I mean, by then there might be a couple thousand people, which will still be impactful.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you look at NXT setup, old NXT setup, if they could have something like that, like that'd be pretty sick. So, and they get rid of the stupid screens and whatever, and you have 5,000 fans there, and who have been vaccinated and whatever. I mean, maybe they could do it. So our world could look a lot different in 3 months. So hopefully it will for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jay, I think we covered a lot of really good stuff in regards to the year of women's wrestling, and I think we have a lot of good things looking forward to within AEW.
But by the way, here's what I'm going to say for anyone who's listening. If you don't like women's wrestling, you better figure your life out, because women's wrestling is fire right now, and it's only going to keep growing. It really is. It's spectacular. Some of the matches suck, quite frankly. Go to AEW Dark. It can be a real shit show. But there's a lot more women coming through, a lot more women who want to be wrestlers are seeing this empowerment era of these women coming in. I think the 4 horsewomen are, going to be such an influential part of women, of all wrestling, but particularly women's wrestling moving forward. Women are going to see this and say, shit, I could be Charlotte. I could be Sasha. I could be Bayley. I could be Becky. And I think you're just going to continue to see this wave of female wrestlers coming through, and female wrestlers who are the athlete of like Bianca Belair and these type of women. So I think you're just going to keep seeing women's wrestling evolve and continue to improve. So I'm excited about the next year.
Absolutely, Jay. So before we get out of here, just quickly, it wasn't I don't know if it was a great week in wrestling otherwise, but Jay, just quick thought. Didn't like TLC?
I thought the Owens Reigns match was great. I enjoyed TLC. I thought the Owens Reigns match was great. I think they told a great story. I think it put Owens over. That's a match where the reason why that match was so compelling to me is because I knew who was going to win, and it was still good. I thought they told a great story. I think it was a tremendous match. So I very much enjoyed it. I thought the AJ match was good too.
Yeah, I thought it was a solid show. I didn't think it was a great show, but I thought it kept people.
I mean, it's hard for those shows to be great, Corey, because we know like they're not gonna change any of these belts, right? Like, so it's hard to have a great show when you know the outcome of all these matches, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other big thing on the show was basically burning a man alive, with the Fiend. So I don't know. I guess it's supposed to get edgier. I don't know if that was.
Is that edgy? He killed a person on TV.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the shit that people make fun of wrestling fans for. Like, oh, you watch this? Yeah, I fucking do. I know. I'm in a chat with like 6 of my buddies, and we mostly talk sports and gambling and sometimes politics, and we argue a lot. But one of my buddies posted, he's like, hey, what's this shit about someone getting burnt alive? And I said, I guess this is what WWE is going for. But he's the type of guy who will watch that and say, this is the dumbest shit ever. Like, I'm never going to watch this or have anybody I know watch this. Corey, you burned someone alive. I don't know. I think they're getting really the edge of the line here with Bray Wyatt and the supernatural stuff, because it's fine. I think it's okay, but they're getting to a point where it's like his matches are not great. I mean, his best feud was against Daniel Bryan, because they had a good match. But I think now we're getting to the point where they really are going, and I understand, and people have talked about this. The Undertaker, Kane, they had these crazy matches, supernatural matches. Undertaker's, I mean, top 5 greatest character in the history of wrestling, right? And he's kind of a supernatural being. I get it. But then they still had the guy wrestle fucking matches, like regular matches. He wasn't just always a supernatural guy. So I think they need to figure out, because here's the thing. You could say they did the supernatural stuff 20 years ago with Undertaker and Kane a lot. That's a different era of wrestling than we have now. Like, it's not the same era of wrestling. These guys use their names. We know where they're from. We have social media. Like, you know, doing this faking kayfabe stuff is like, it just doesn't hold as much water to me. So they need to figure out the kind of the fine line with Bray Wyatt and his supernatural stuff, because I think they could figure it out. I just think him getting burned alive doesn't make a lot of sense, but yeah, who knows? That being said, people were into it, so
well, that makes 2 people that aren't us. I couldn't say much better than you. Otherwise, I think that AEW and NXT both had, you know, good shows. We'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. Thought MLW Opera Cup final was very good.
That was the match of the week.
Yeah, I think Tom Lawler and Low Ki.
Yeah, that was Tom Lawler's, by far Tom Lawler's best match that I've ever seen him have. It was a great match. Yeah,
apparently, I guess Low Ki got a little bit hurt in that. I mean, I think he's going to be okay, but you know, so I think he was legitimately hurt at the end of that match. So, I'm going to be interesting to see where they go, you know, with their big show on the 6th. We'll talk about that in the coming weeks. January 6th is going to be a loaded night that Wednesday, where you've got a big show, the New Year's Evil show. You've got the second night of New Year's Smash for AEW. You've got the big, you know, New Year's Dash show for New Japan, which is the follow-up to Wrestle Kingdom. So that Thursday, the 7th, is going to be a huge show for us. You know, basically talking about everything that happened from Wrestle Kingdom.
Whatever we've been able to watch.
Yeah,
it's my wife. I'm gonna drive my wife crazy with this about watching hours and hours of wrestling. She's like, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah, but Jay, I think we covered a lot of really good stuff, and of course, you know, some stuff we didn't get to this week, but we'll try to do better, you know, in the future. But Jay, how about you let people know how they can follow us on the social medias and possibly go over the schedule for the life group.
Yeah, so a life group started by our buddy Henry Maldonado. So we'll talk about our Twitters and stuff first, and then go over the schedule. We are at Work Shoot Pod on Twitter and on Instagram, WROKED Shoot Pod. I've been trying to tweet a little bit more, and I think, you know, next Wednesday I'm just going to kind of sit on my couch and just watch. Well, actually, it's going to be kind of crazy. Or the 6th, actually, yeah, 6th. I'll sit on my couch, watch wrestling, and kind of tweet a lot. So I'm going to try to keep tweeting every now and then. Corey gets in there too. So check us out on Twitter and on Instagram. Again, Worked Shoot Pod. Leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us with, you know, moving up in terms of, you know, the ratings and in terms of people being able to see us. So leave a review of the show. That'd be great. And the Life Group podcasts are as follows. Monday is Dong City. So talking about baseball. I mean, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Actually, you know, this was the slowest winter meetings season like ever. I mean, Lance Lynn got traded to the White Sox. Like, that was the big move. Like, what a mess. But baseball is going to be interesting to see what happens and how they get a season moving forward. We got the Audible football podcast, Omaha. So that's on Tuesdays. The Step Back. I don't know what kind of shows the Step Back, Corey.
It's a basketball podcast.
Basketball. Okay. Step Back, Euro Step. Okay. Obviously the NBA just started, so a lot of stuff going on with that right now. Let's go Luka Doncic plus 400 MVP. Work Shoot Wrestling podcast, which is the two of us, lovely gentlemen. And then on Sundays we got another baseball show called Total Bases. I think Henry, actually, that's his show, right? Or
actually, he's Dong City.
He's Dong City.
That's Felipe and Sean.
Felipe and Sean is Total Bases. Okay, so you got two. We know how this group really started from baseball. Clearly, we know that's clearly Henry's favorite sport. But no, so you got a couple baseball, you got a basketball, you got pro wrestling, you got football. So a lot of stuff going on for you guys to listen to and to take a part of during this holiday season. So check us all out. Some good content. Also join the groups if you can. If you're in the Wrestling Life group and you're like, I like baseball, join the Baseball Life group. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of good conversation. And I'm gonna say this, and this is not me putting over these life groups because we're a part of them now a little bit more. These are some of the best conversations I've had on Facebook with stuff. Because you know how Facebook can be real contentious. People want to be racist and people want to say stupid shit. But there's usually really, really good conversation, particularly in a Wrestling Life group of people having debates about stuff. And yeah, so please join these groups. It's actually good conversation. It's not the usual Facebook nonsense. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
And of course, where it all started, what made us come back and do this show, our sister podcast, still making me feel like the superstar that I wish I was. Jay, what would that be called?
You Don't Know Jackie!
With Jackie Endy and Jackie Rachel, and apparently Jackie Cornelius.
So the gimmick on the show, everyone, for you guys who may not know, is everyone's called Jackie except for Corey, and it's a comedy podcast. They make fun of Corey the whole time. I've been on it a couple times. It's a good show. You Don't Know Jackie. Definitely take a listen if you're into the comedy stuff. They do like pop culture stuff, so it's definitely a good show to listen to.
Oh, I'm Jackie Cornelius now. I actually have a Jackie name now.
Oh, they should have gimmicked you. You should have kept your name.
I actually gimmicked myself.
See, that's weak sauce. All right, go ahead.
But Jay, like you said, wherever you can check out podcasts, check out us, check out You Don't Know Jackie, and of course, check out all of the Life Group podcasts, which we are very proud to be part of now. And Jay, I guess final topic of the week. Do you think that this last week of the year, any of these shows will really be worth watching? I mean, we've got Kenny versus Phoenix. We've got, the idea that maybe we might have some Impact wrestlers could show up. Anything in it, we've got Gargano versus not Leo Rush. I'm sorry, that would be actually interesting. We've got
Leon
again.
Cheeseburger Leon Ruff, yeah.
Leon Ruff.
I don't know. Obviously, Impact's going to be another repeat. I think there'll be good shows. I think they'll be interesting. I think there'll be interesting shows. Is it so? It's the 30th, right? So it won't be New Year's Eve. So it won't be like people will be traveling. Like it's the day before New Year's Eve. You actually are more likely to be home because you're going to party the next day. So, I think the shows could all be pretty interesting. I don't see why they would be like throwaway shows necessarily. So yeah, we'll see. Should be some interesting content. I don't know that any of it will be like, oh my gosh, they're not going to have, Shaq on this. Apparently they want to have Sting on every week now, which we talked about wasn't a good idea. But we'll see how AEW and NXT play this. Obviously, NXT, this is all about building toward their January 6th show. I mean, that's what this is all about. So, 2 weeks from now, Wednesday is gonna be a really, really big night in wrestling for us hardcore fans for sure. So, well, I mean, I think our show next week's gonna basically be previewing the Wednesday after that, but we'll see. Should be a good week of wrestling for sure.
So yeah, very last thing. I know results have come out. Neither one of us has seen it. Do we have a new Intercontinental Champion this Friday on the Christmas Smackdown? Sami Zayn versus Big E. I know Big E's been champion before, but I think this is his big moment to go. They take that next level as a true single star. Do they put the title on him, or do they wait for the Rumble, or what do you think?
First of all, interesting they're having such a big show on Christmas.
Title matches, yeah.
I guess you figure, for me, traditionally, in like my family, what we've done now, it's who knows, but we do stuff in the morning, and then at night it's kind of like more like watching Christmas movies. You're doing your own thing. Especially when I was a teenager, it's like who gives a shit? Hang out with your family. So it'll be interesting to see like how the ratings are for SmackDown. I can't imagine they'll be good. And that's why they're loading these shows up. I don't think you do a title change in a show that a lot of people might not watch. I don't know that that's a great idea. So I'm gonna say that Sami Zayn somehow figures out a way to not to keep the title. And they've done this, right? Like he does all these tricks and gimmicks to keep the title. So I think they'll do that this time. And then maybe at the Royal Rumble, you see a title change. But that being said, maybe they want to, throw people. Maybe that's the first match of the night and Big E wins. And then you're like, oh my God, I've got to go watch SmackDown now because something big happened. So they really could go either way. But I would think that they wouldn't do a big title change in a show that maybe some of their audience would not watch. I mean, think about it, Corey. If they're doing this show, so a lot of the kids who watch the show, maybe they get video games from Santa or whatever, because that's the audience they played with something. Anyway, maybe they're getting video games or they're getting toys or getting stuff. They might not want to watch this show at the end of the day. They'll be too busy doing other stuff. So they gotta, a lot of their audience, and then the adults might be kind of sleepy from waking up early. If they're parents from hanging out with their kids all day, they're tired at the end of the day. I don't know. There's a chance they could really lose a lot of people. So, that being said, the ratings will probably be the best they've ever been. I don't know. I can't predict half this shit. So, so we'll see. But I think Big E does not win. But what say you?
I'm gonna say, due to the fact we are in the COVID era, and they're gonna hope that people are gonna be safe this time around. Unlike Thanksgiving, people aren't gonna go crazy. Maybe they will, but I think people are gonna be home. And Friday night, they've got 3 title matches. I don't see Reigns losing the title. I don't see them taking the title off of Charlotte and Asuka. And I think you got to have one title change on your last show of the year. I think Big E wins the title. Big moment at the end of the show. I think we have a new champion. I think we go home happy. Final SmackDown of the year. But I'm never right, so he'll lose in the ring.
All right, one last topic, because Corey loves talking about the ratings. I usually am 50-50 with it. Interesting this week, AEW did really well in the ratings and beat NXT 775,000 to 698,000 for NXT.
And a show that started at 10 o'clock.
On a show that started at 10. So I don't want to get into it too much, just a couple minutes on it. This could really just be an anomaly. It could just be that, the Bucks Celtics game was a good game. They had a good lead in. Could be anything. But I think moving forward, we have to think about what these ratings tell us. And I don't know that we have an answer for this now. I certainly don't have a great answer for why the ratings for AEW were so good. So good considering their time slot. And NXT's weren't good. Corey, do you have any theories?
I think a big part of this is the fact that the game's coverage literally ended at 10:04, right when NXT ended.
How do you explain 100,000 more? How do you explain 77 more thousand people tuning in then?
I think you had the diehard AEW fans who were going to watch no matter what, and you had the NXT fans who were like, all right, let me see if this is ending now, I'll continue watching. I think if there was a big delay and the basketball game went and had a huge, if they went to overtime, I think that number would have cratered. But due to the fact that one ended one after the other, I think that they kept their audience. I really do think if this game had a long delay, I think that number would have been much, much less. I don't really think there was this huge amount of basketball fans who were like, oh, look, it's Chris Jericho, somebody we knew from the Attitude Era, and we're going to continue to watch. I don't think that was what happened here. I think it really comes down to the fact that NXT ended and it was right afterwards, and I think people stayed. They switched over.
But they might not have known that the game was starting, or that the show was ending. Maybe they just turned on to see.
Yeah, I think that's
that's interesting. It's interesting. Why didn't NXT do better too?
Maybe that's what their base audience is right now, and maybe there wasn't. I mean, how much was actually did we know? This is what NXT's major problem is most weeks. I mean, we know what the major matches are for the NXT New Year's Evil shows. We know pretty much the whole entire card. And we know a lot of the card for next week, which is a great sign with, Dunn versus Roderick Strong. But most weeks we have no idea what any of the matches are until like a day before or the day of. So not knowing what's going to happen on NXT match-wise, you don't really usually have oh my God, I got to watch this show.
Yeah, but you don't have that. But that's not even the point. They don't have. I mean, they do that for some shows, but not for all. But you still don't have. There's no competition. So just have 800,000 people just because. It's just interesting. Again, these are conversations I think we're going to continue to have on the podcast, but we'll kind of keep that rolling. And again, you guys in the Wrestle Life. Wrestle Life group want to ask us things that you're interested to hear about, especially next week, which might be like a kind of a little bit of a different show than we normally do. Maybe we'll do some end of the year stuff with the male wrestlers and male wrestler of the year, male match of the year, those sorts of things. We'll have a lot of different options. So continue to subscribe, check us out. With that said, I think we're done here. See ya.
Merry Christmas, guys.